And in this course, we are covering 9 sessions. So we have already covered secret of happiness, key to success, tips to overcome suffering, art of work, importance of guide, a balanced lifestyle was the one which we did last time. And today we'll be talking about, am I in control? As I told you, like, is there someone who is influencing our actions, our decisions, um, and who that person is, right? And can we overcome the external influences? How can we do that? So that is all we are going to discuss today, again from Bhagavad Gita. And then thereafter, we'll have 2 more sessions, the Supreme Controller and the Ultimate Perfection, right? So with this, we will be covering all our 9 sessions. And after that, whoever is interested, we can thereafter, study Bhagavad Gita in more detail and in more depth. So we'll kick start our today's session, which is Am I in Control? Agenda is as follows. Am I in control of all that I do, or there's someone else? And who is the actual doer? How am I responsible for my actions? What are the modes of nature? You know, these are similar to ropes which bind us. And how to get along with people of different modes, of different nature, of different style. So how should we manage and communicate with them, work with them, right? And then finally, how to get free from these modes. And thereafter, as always, we will share practical tips of the day. Okay, so we'll start with who is the doer, who is the actual doer, because many a times what we have seen that even if we are doing something, you know, somehow we wonder that why, when we do the same thing at different times, we not always have the same result. And, you know, we may have different moods, we have different productivity, we have different energy levels, right? So, although we are the same person, or even if it is someone else, they are the same person, but, it depends. It depends, what the outcome will be. It's not always going to be the same, regardless, you know, their expertise, their qualification, it keeps oscillating. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's average, sometimes it can be bad, right? So that means that there's something or someone, right, who who is involved, or more than just we ourselves, right? Because if we were the only one, then we could have had the same output, right? And and we wonder, why is it? Because if we see the machines, right, the machines, they work in the same way, right? Day or night, whatever it is, if you switch on the machine, it will give the same output, right? Computer, if you provide some data, depending on the program, it will give output accordingly. But somehow we are not machines, right? We are not programmed in the way the machines are, and we act differently in different circumstances, right? And we have seen that even in life of Arjuna. uh, Arjuna was very intelligent, very strong, uh, and he won the battle of Kurukshetra with help of Krishna, right? He fought with many strong warriors like Bhishma, Karna, Drona, right? Somehow, what happened once when he was returning from Dwarka, on his way back to Hastinapur, he had some different realization. Uh, and that was the time when Krishna has already departed from earth. And this was the statement which was made by Arjun, uh, that I have the very same Gandiva bow. His bow was named as Gandiv. And he had the same arrows, the same chariot drawn by same horses. And I used them as same Arjun, to whom all the kings offered their due respects. But in the absence of Lord Krishna, all of them at a moment's notice have become null and void. It is exactly like offering clarified butter on ashes, accumulating money with a magic wand, or sowing seeds on a barren land. So here, you know, Arjuna was in the same condition, same person, same weapons, same chariot, same horses, everything same, right? But he was defeated while safeguarding Krishna's wives, right? He was a superhero, and then he getting defeated. He, anyone's ego will be shattered, right? And Arjuna was not in control. He was the same Arjuna with same physical strength, with same everything. But even then, he was not in control of the outcome. It seems that someone else is pulling the strings. Someone else is controlling, the output, right? And what is it? It seems like sometimes as if we are just puppet, and the people, who are just controlling our actions, right? And here I've shown you a picture where personalities are having ropes, right? And as if they're doing a puppet show. And that is the case because that is the role of material nature, which we are going to discuss today. So I just want to check if everyone is able to see the slide deck.
Yes, Sumit, yes.
Okay, good. Okay. So it seems there is someone else, and these are the modes of nature, right? And here is what is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. Prakrti kriya manani guna karmani sarvasha ahankara vimudatma kartaham iti manyate. The spirit soul, bewildered by the influence of false ego, thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality carried out by the three modes of material nature, right? So here it is clearly said that uh, out of our false ego, we think ourselves like that I am the doer or we are the doer, right? And we discussed, if you remember, during our second session, that how Duryodhana was planning with all his diplomacy, to be successful, to win the battle of Kurukshetra, right? He had everything which a person needs to be successful, right? But he was defeated miserably. And this is clear example of someone who thinks that I am the doer, everything is in my control, right? I'm going to influence everyone and everything, right? But Krishna says something else, that it is someone else actually, who is involved in our actions, right? Now what is that? Now, for example, if we have been given some money by someone else, can we be proud of this borrowed money, right? Because that's not our money. We have just, borrowed it, or someone has just given us, right? So there's nothing to be proud of because ultimately it's not my money. And here is another anecdotal story of a frog, you know, um, on a on a royal road. He found a 1 rupee coin, and then getting that 1 rupee coin, he started thinking that, wow, I am the richest person in the world. I have something which no one else have, right? And then on this royal road was an elephant carrying king who was coming towards the frog, right? And he stops the elephant carrying king and tells that I am the richest person, right? And he would not, move away from the way. And what will happen is ultimately he was crushed by the elephant, right? So the lesson learned for us is we should have this gratitude, right? This is very important because all we have in our life, including our own brains, if you think little deep, we are not the one, who have manufactured this way brain, and nor our parents. This brain is maybe millions time more complicated than the cell phone, right? And there's how many engineers and scientists are involved in coming up with a cell phone. And every now and then they will come up with an advanced version, but there has been no advanced version of the brain. And we sometimes are very proud of what we do, thinking that, I have done that, right? But I'm sorry, uh, you are doing all this with help of this body, and this body belongs or has been manufactured by someone else, and that someone else is God, right? And this is the quality, the way a devotee of Krishna thinks, the devotee of God thinks. The intelligence, the capacity I have is a gift of Krishna, is a gift of God. Good things I'm able to do, I have to give credit to Krishna, because we know ultimately whatever we are able to do is because of his blessings, because of things he has provided to us, right? But excuse me, what about the bad things? Why I am responsible for bad things? If we should give credit to Krishna for good things, then should we also give blame to Krishna for all what is happening incorrectly in our life, right? So, what is my role altogether in any action, right? So, if you are not the doer but are responsible for your actions, then that's unfair, right? Now, if I'm not the doer and do something bad, then why should I be punished, right? If material nature does, then she should be punished, right? If, for example, if thief has been brought in front of a judge, and the thief says that I didn't do it, it was the material nature, it was prakriti kriyamana, right? It was the material nature who did it, right? Who did the murder? And uh, the victim says, or the culprit says, no, I'm sorry. The culprit says, I didn't do the murder. It was the material nature, right? So if we are not the doer, right, then why are we held responsible for it? What is the science of karma then? Everything seems to be illogical. Are our scriptures sentimental? Hmm? Can anyone say how karma and these modes of material nature coexist, right? Because there are two things. There, we talked about karma, right? And now we are talking about something, saying that we are not the doer and it's something else which we call as material nature, right? So how do these two things coexist? How do these two things influence each other? And ultimately, who is responsible? Let's dig in more detail. And here it is said, adhisthanam tatha karta karanam cha prathak vidham vividhas cha prathak chesta devam che vatra panchamam. The place of action, which is the body, the performer, the various senses, the many different kinds of endeavor, and ultimately the super soul. These are five factors of the action. So that means I, which is the soul, is just one of the factors, right? So let's assume. So can we fly like a bird? No, because body doesn't support, right? Our endeavors, as we discussed, they may be same, but the outcome is different, right? So there's something more, which is material nature. And ultimately, you know, if Lord is not sanctioning, then we will not be able to do anything. So the whole cycle is that I am desiring, and depending on my desire, Krishna sanctions. So it's Krishna sanctions upon depending upon our desire and also what we deserve, right? So what depending on what we desire and deserve, Krishna sanctions, and the material nature executes, right? So uh, and it is not that the material nature is acting whimsically, right? Or it's functioning like a so-called Indian government. No, it is seamless. It's seamless. It's absolutely amazing to know how it works. So then let's wait a minute and see that how many things or people are involved in influencing us. It's environment, it's the mind, intelligence, and modes of nature, right? And it's just like, for example, I think so with this you will be able to understand it easily. So if you have gone out to buy a product, right, there are many factors which are influencing your decision. Your the opinion of your family members, so many advertisements you might have already seen, your colleagues, your bank balance, and how many bills you have to pay before you can buy, and then there are so many other things. So similarly, our actions depends on many factors. We take the final call. So the final onus is on us, right? In past, we have talked about intelligence, right? What was the difference between mind and intelligence? That mind is always in between likes and dislikes, while intelligence says it is correct or not correct. So what is this new thing? What is this modes of nature, right? Let's try to understand what is this modes of nature, which actually is one of the important subject matters of Bhagavad Gita, which is known as Prakriti, right? So this is what we are going to understand, that how they are impacting our decision making, right? So previously we have studied about soul, mind, intelligence, and panchbhutas, those five gross elements, three subtle elements, right? So the science behind how these different elements interact with each other, it's actually modes of nature. If you remember, we talked about five gross matters: earth, water, fire, air, ether. And then we talked about three subtle coverings, right? Intelligence, mind, and false ego. So, how these eight things are interacting with each other and influencing the soul is modes of nature, right? And there are these three modes of nature, which is known as Satogun, Rajogun, and Tamogun. Mode of goodness, mode of passion, and mode of ignorance. You know, you might have seen, we talk about, oh, this person is a tamasic person, or he's a rajasic person, or he's in mode of goodness, right? He's satogoni person. We talk about people, right? And there are, for almost everything in our life, what we do is under one of these modes or a mixture of them, right? For example, let's see some example of these different modes, what Gita has to say, the characteristics of people in these different modes. Mukta Sangha Anamvadi Dhriti Ustaha Samanvita Siddhi Ashiddhyor Nirvikara Karta Satvika Uchyate. One who performs his duty without association with the modes of material nature, without false ego, with great determination and enthusiasm, and without wavering in success or failure, is said to be a worker in the modes of goodness. Okay. So here is an example of someone in modes of goodness. And again, it is said, Yattad agare visham iva vairinam amritopamam tat sukham satvikam proktam atma buddhi prasadajam. That which in the beginning may be just like poison, but at the end is just like nectar, and which awakens one to self realization, is said to be happiness in the modes of nature. For example, you know, we may be doing some austerities, right? Or for example, we talk when we request kids or students to study or our children to study, right? It looks like it's so difficult, right? And what we do in our spiritual life, it looks like it's not easy. We have to try to get up early in the morning. We have to restrict what we can eat, what we cannot, what we can talk, what we cannot, how we have to behave. So all these restrictions, looks very limiting, very daunting sometimes. But at the end, the way if a student of our children, they're studying nicely, at the end, they will get good scores, right? They will get into good university or college. Similarly, all our endeavors in spiritual life, they may look daunting, they may look difficult, but as it is said in this verse, you know, poison in the beginning, but nectar in the end. And that is what, falls under mode of goodness, right? Now, let's see what Gita has to say about someone who is in mode of passion, which is in Rajogun. Ragi karma phala prepshur lobdo hims atma ko shuchi harsha shokanvita karta rajasa parikirtita. The worker who is situated to work and the fruits of work, the worker who is attached to the work and the fruits of work, desiring to enjoy those fruits, and who is greedy, always envious, impure, and moved by joy and sorrow, is said to be in the mode of passion, right? So we see a lot of people around us, you know, who are so passionate about work, and they can go to any extent to achieve the desired outcome, right? They can do anything to achieve, what they want to in their lives. So these are people whom we call, you know, being in mode of passion, and corporate life is, an example for that. And here there's one more example. Vishayendriya samoyagat yattad agre amritopamam pariname visham eva tat sukham rajasam smritam. That happiness which is desired, which is derived from contact of the senses with their objects, and which appears like nectar at first, but poison at the end, is said to be of the nature of passion, which is totally opposite from what we heard about mode of goodness, right? Um, so this may look, very good in the beginning, but it will be the outcome will be, you know, very, very horrible. And we have seen, we being doctors, we have seen people, they stretch their bodies, they are not able to control their senses. They can drink endlessly, they can smoke, you know and the I would say um, the biggest what we say is, um, I wonder how everyone thinks that, I'm drinking, um, not as much as the other person is drinking, and I'm smoking not as much as the other person is. And so I will not face the health issues, because the other person is drinking much more than I am, and other person seems to be very healthy. So why would I face those, issues which doctors or my relatives or friends tell, oh, you don't drink or smoke, otherwise, or you don't stretch so much, right? You sleep on time, you eat nicely, all those things, right? Because to start with, that drinking is smoking or whatever it is, it may look so good to our senses, but the end is horrible, right? So these are some of the examples of those things, right? And so is, you know, so-called our material life. It may look so good, that we are having a good so-called education, good salary, and there is no need to, spend time in spirituality. What is the need? What's the outcome? We don't see any tangible outcome doing spiritual practices, but we see tangible outcomes in terms of our salary, right? In terms of joy, we get by seeing movies or by seeing 24/7 something on television, right? We get instant, and we are used to that instant joy, instant happiness, which what Krishna is saying falls into modes of passion. They may look good in beginning, but the outcome is poisonous, right? And we all know how these things, we end up spending our money, we end up spending our time, right? We end up spending our valuable life, and we don't even realize what, that we are not this body, we are soul, right? And here we go with some examples of people who are in mode of ignorance, tamogun, right? Ayukta prakarta stabdaha satho nishkritikol aslasa vishadi dirga sutricha karta tamasa uchyate. The worker who is always engaged in work against the injunctions of the scriptures, who is materialistic, obstinate, cheating, and expert in insulting others, and who is lazy, always morose, and procrastinating, is said to be a worker in the mode of ignorance. Right? So these are all clear examples, and we see, people who really don't want to do anything, be lazy, you know, just keep on delaying things. They are not ready to follow any spiritual things, right? They are always busy in cheating, insulting others, right? So these are people in mode of ignorance. And what more? Yad agrechanam bandhucha sukham mohanam atmana nidra alasya pramadhotham tad tamasam udharatam. And that happiness which is blind to self-realization. So it talks about the happiness people are deriving, right? The first example we saw, people in mode of goodness, their happiness was derived, at the beginning it was like very difficult. They were not enjoying it, looked like it is poisonous, but at the end it was nectar. Ignorance, it was all opposite. And now we are hearing about what happens with people in ignorance. So that happiness which is blind to self-realization, which is delusion from beginning to end, and which arises from sleep, laziness, and illusion, is said to be of the nature of ignorance, right? And we might have all seen example of people, right, who hardly bother about spirituality, right? They are so lazy. They may sleep late at night, maybe 2 a.m., get up at 11 a.m. For them, day or night doesn't matter, right? For them, sometimes it is said in scriptures, even their living or dying doesn't matter, right? Because whatever they are doing, it's useless, you know. So this is an example of those people, right? And we have seen, like, we usually talk about an example of a camel. Camel, they live in desert, and they eat cactus, and they really love it. And you know why? Because that cactus, what it does, when it is being chewed by those camels, the thorns they prick the mouth of cactus, and the blood which comes in is what is tastier to the camel. So it is basically, the taste it is having is of its own blood. So it's actually not the cactus which is giving its taste, but its own blood. So this is what a happiness, you know, derived by burning our own body. Happiness derived by wasting our own time, by spoiling our life, you know. So now which mode are we in, right? So basically, there is no pure goodness, passion, or ignorance, and it's like, it's a mix of everything. Uh, and someone is more influenced or more in the modes of goodness, someone may be in passion, right? So it's a combination of different modes which makes up a personality. And an example is given of this, a color palette. So for all the colors which we see, they are derived from three colors, right? The red, green, and blue. Okay, and all it can make n number of different shades. Um, and so the three strands of rope which actually um, bind us. People are foolish thinking themselves free, that they're free to do anything, right? And I can just do it by my own efforts. But they don't realize that they're bound by these three ropes of material nature, and which in different permutation and combination are coming what, different experiences in our life with different things. And again, here Krishna says that not one mode is always, it's basically fighting between the three different modes. Rajas tamav chabibhuya satvam bhavati bharata raja satvam tamascheva tamasatvam rajas tatha. Sometimes the mode of goodness becomes prominent, defeating the mode of passion and ignorance. O son of Bharata, sometimes the mode of passion defeats goodness and ignorance, and at other times, ignorance defeats goodness and passion. In this way, there's always a competition for supremacy. And I tell you, you know, this is something I understand that you may be finding it difficult to digest, right? And we will study this in more detail when we study Bhagavad Gita. Okay, but this is a glimpse, that there is something more which is controlling us. And we always know that, when in morning we get up, it is like we are in mode of goodness, and that is why it is said that it's good to do your spiritual practices in morning. As the day progresses, we are more influenced by passion. Just do this, do that, this, and towards the evening, in ignorance is impacting us and influencing us, right? So there is always a sort of, what we say is huge politics. um, Within ourselves on which mode is trying to influence us and how it is being, right? So of this, which mode is good to be in? Is passion good, goodness good, or ignorance good, right? um, so let me ask you one question. If you are sent to a prison house, what will be your choice of rooms, like a first class room, a second class room, a third class room, right? If you're bound by a chain, uh, does it make difference if you are bound by a gold chain or silver chain or iron chain? Ultimately, you're bound, right? So as long as you are in jail, you are in jail. The question is which is good or which is bad. The question is, how can I come out of the jail, right? Although uh, gold chain may look better than the silver chain, but all what the chain is doing is binding you, right? It is just in your psyche, you can feel that, yes, oh, I am bound with a gold chain, so I am better than the other person, or I am in a first class room in a jail, right? So, our ultimate priority, regardless of what mode we are in, should be to overcome these three modes. And there is a way, right? So, let's see. Tatra Satvam Nirmalavat Prakshakam Anyam Anamayam Sukha Sangena Badnati Jnana Sangena Chanaga. O sinless one, the modes of goodness being purer than the others is illuminating. And it's free, and it frees one from all sinful reactions. Those situated in that mode become conditioned by a sense of happiness and knowledge, right? So you're happy here, right? Um, in a sense that as long as you are in first class room or bound with a golden chain, why to get out of the jail? I am doing charity, I am doing good work, everything is going on fine. No, ultimately you are in jail. Don't relax here. We all have to go out. We have to free ourselves, regardless of which mode we are in, right? We have to try to just get out of this jail, right? Satvam sukhe sanjyati raja karmani bharata jnanam avrate tutama pramade sanjyati uta. O son of Bharata, the mode of goodness conditions one to happiness. So here you would see the word conditions, right? So the mode of goodness conditions one to happiness, passion conditions one to fruitive action, and ignorance covering one's knowledge binds one to madness. None of the chains are good. Ultimately, I need freedom. But as of now, I am bound, I am conditioned by modes. And people around me are also, right? People around me are also influenced, are also bound by different modes, by bound by different chains, right? And it becomes so difficult because we are influenced by modes, people around us are influenced by modes. So how to interact, how to get along with people of different personalities, right? Because I heard something amazing. There will be a person in every one of our lives who will test all of our parameters to its extreme. It can be someone, right, who will try to test your patience, your tolerance, everything in you, right? So what kind of people do we meet? Hmm? We sometimes meet people we are comfortable with. You know, we we work with people whom we can easily manage. Sometimes for others, we always like to keep a distance. Better keep a safe distance from them. Others may be ruthless. Whatever you try, they are going to trouble you. And sometimes it really becomes difficult for people to get along, and which is what we are seeing in so-called modern society, so-called advanced society, when there are so many fights, so many, divorces, right? Because no one knows how to get along with each other. No one knows, you know, no one has tolerance, no one has patience. They just want everything quick, right? Fast food, fast life, everything fast, right? And it becomes so difficult, especially when there's someone like that, unmanageable, ruthless, in our workplace, in our family, whom we have to closely work with, right? Because it's actually easy to work with devices, but unfortunately, it's difficult to work along with people with with different style, right? We see here everyone is busy with their own instrument, and that is what we see very often nowadays, because that's the easiest thing to do. It's difficult to sometimes communicate, collaborate with people, but it is easy to sort of waste our time with all these instruments. And what does Krishna says about it? Nahi kashishanam api jatu tishtati akarma krit karyate hi avaskarma sarva prakriti jera guna. Everyone is forced to act helplessly according to the qualities he has acquired from the modes of material nature. Therefore, no one can refrain from doing something, not even for a moment. People act helplessly, influenced by modes. What to do in difficult situations, you know? And we will discuss that, what to do in difficult situation in our practical tips of the day. How to make different kind of people to work, right? How should we manage them, right? Because different people are different by attracted by different things, you know. um, Depending on the modes, they may be attracted to different food, they may be attracted to different type of entertainment. One person may like walking in the garden, other person wants to go to a mall, and the third person may like to go to a discotheque, you know. It's like, it's how they are being influenced. And that is what we often see. If you you know put different kind of food stuff, everyone will like to pick up something different, and it depends on what uh, mode they are in. And there is a story from one of the scriptures where it is said that there was a fisherman, who were fishing till late evening, and on his way back home, it started heavily raining and all. So he found a shelter in one ashram, right? um, so so he kept his bag of fishes outside, because definitely he cannot take it along with him in the ashram. And then he went inside, and it was all so peaceful. It was also clean, and there was a smell of incense, and everything, flowers. And then he rested there inside. And and after some time, he was feeling uncomfortable. He felt there's something wrong here. And he he then went out of the ashram, and he slept beside his bag of fish. You know why? Because he was so used to that smell of fish. He would feel very uncomfortable sitting or sleeping inside the ashram. So, and this is not an anecdotal story, I tell you. This is what we see in our lives. You know, I tell you, I really wonder how people can spend their whole night in clubs, right? When it's really difficult for us to keep us, working or doing something after 9:30 or 10 p.m. We just want to sleep. And we just wonder how people can you know be up awake till late night, or go out in clubs, discotheques, or movies, or horrible things all around what we see in our modern life, right? You might have all experienced those type of things. So now, having talked about everything, that how these are binding us, people are being influenced because they are in different modes, you know uh, now, how should we come out of these modes? Is there any remedy, right? Because ultimately we discussed that we have to come out of this jail. We have to free ourselves from these shackles, whether it is of gold, silver, or iron, whatever it is, right? So that's what we are going to discuss in the subsequent section. And let's see what Krishna has to say here. Purusha prakrti stohi bhungte prakrti gyan gunan karanam guno sangosya sad asadyoni janmashu. The living entity in the material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus, he meets with good and evil among various species. So, here Krishna is talking about something very important. Before we discuss how we get ourselves free, is that why are we in a particular mode? And he says it's because of our association, right? Now, How can we change that? Like, for example, when we are talking about spirituality, we advise people to get up early in the morning, read scripture, read scriptures, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, right? Do chanting, attend some classes, right? And don't take random association. Association is what is going to influence you the most. It is said, tell me with whom you associate, and I will tell you who you are, right? So there are different kind of people around you, and it depends on who you want to be in your life, right? Because this very thing is actually going to influence you the most. And again, it is said, Taiguna Vishaya Veda Nistraiguno Bhavarjuna Nirdvando Nitya Sattvusto Niryoga Shema Atmavan. The Vedas, they deal mainly with the subject of the three modes of material nature. So it's not Bhagavad Gita. We are talking about all the Vedas, different, right? Shruti, Smriti, all different type of Vedas. And the subject matter which is most discussed in those Vedas is about modes of material nature. O Arjuna, become transcendental to these three modes. Transcendental means overcome. You have to overcome these three modes. You have to transcend these three modes. Be free from all dualities, from all anxieties for gain and safety, and be established in the self. Right? So here Krishna is advising that ultimately we have to overcome these different modes. And Krishna, how he's advising us that, in these Vedas, it's all about, it is different things are mentioned in different Vedas. Ultimately, become transcendental to all what is described in the Vedas. Overcome, you know, just don't think that whatever is mentioned in the Vedas will fit you. No, because Vedas are primarily talking about all the three modes. People in this mode can do this. People in this mode can do this. Because ultimately, let me explain it to you with an example. Now, if a patient comes to a doctor and he has been a drunkard, right? Um, and the doctor knows that if he tells him to stop drinking, he would not do that. And he will not be able to do that. So, what doctor says, okay, if you are drinking, for example, 5 glasses, reduce it to 4, right? But the doctor didn't intend to encourage drinking, right? His intent of asking that person to drink 4 glasses is because he knew he cannot come to 0, right? So the same doctor, if someone else comes to him and he says that, you know, I have this problem because I have been drinking. The first person was for alcohol drinking, right? Second person may come saying that I was drinking, 2 glasses, and which is this is why happened. And the same doctor will say, okay, why don't you try to drink alternate days, right? So here he will not say you can drink 4 glasses. That instruction is not meant for the second person. The second person may reduce it furthermore, can drink it on alternate days, right? Because ultimately what doctor wants is that they should skip drinking. And the third say, I have been drinking once in a week, but here I have this problem. The doctor say, try to skip drinking gradually once in a month, and then gradually. So, and that is what the Vedas are basically, because Vedas are meant for entire humanity, and they have things for everyone. You might have heard this, right? Which is what Krishna is telling to Arjuna, that these Vedas primarily talk about subject of three modes of material nature, and then that is what they are advising, right? They're not advising a healthy person to do, so there is a niche portion of Vedas which talk about that, and which is primarily Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam, right? Ramayana. Okay. So this is what Krishna is advising. We should basically stop doing spiritual shopping, that, everything is same, right? You can worship any demigod and it's going to same. You can worship or take advice from everyone who is in saffron, they are just the same. No, that's not the case. That's not what our scriptures are saying, because our scriptures themselves are classified into mode of goodness, mode of passion, and mode of ignorance. Not that they are in mode of ignorance or passion, but they are meant for people who are in mode of ignorance, passion, or goodness, right? From LKG to 12th standard, everyone is in school, but they have different category of subject to be studied, and their scale of assessment is different, right? A 12th grade student cannot come and sit in the LKG class and say that just because I scored 100 out of 100 in every subject, I should be given a merit. I'm sorry to tell you, but you are a 12th grade student, so you have to work accordingly. Ultimate purpose of schooling is what? To make them build a strong character, right? To um, make them mature enough, intelligent enough to live in the life which has to come, right? It's not that they just have to you know pass and fail and all this. No, right? And so you know the basic aim of spirituality is to get over this bungee jumping, going up and down, you know, going to heavenly planets or hell, right? We have to stop doing that and transcend this and go back to Golok Vrindavan or Vakunt, to back to our home, which is the main aim, right? Um, so that is what we have to do. Now, in order for us to realize what is good for us, for example, if you are going out to shop something, some gold chain or something, you cannot go in an iron shop and ask, um, you know uh, because you will be cheated. So you should know something about gold. You should know where can you get a good quality gold. You just cannot randomly go to any shop to any person, otherwise you will end up being cheated, right? So the important thing is that here we have Bhagavad Gita in front of us. We have Bhagavad Gita, which has been accepted by all the spiritualists as the essence of the Vedas. And this Bhagavad Gita has all the rules and regulations, all the guidance which we need to follow, right? And it is very practical. So check against Bhagavad Gita, the basic book, read this thoroughly before doing any spiritual shopping, because society is filled with cheaters. And unfortunately, there's only one way to get out of these modes of nature. And here this is Devi Yasha Gunmai Mammaya Durutaya Mam Evaye Prapadyante Mayam Etam Tarantite. Krishna says, this divine energy of mine, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. But those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. So, actually, now you will see here, Krishna is saying that this modes of material nature is a divine energy of Krishna. Now, why is Krishna saying this is a divine energy? You may wonder when we are talking so negatively about modes of nature and we are comparing it to jail or bound by shackles, how can it be a divine energy of Krishna? Now, I hope you will understand with this analogy. Now, the way we have hospital, right, in a city, the way we have police station, right, we also have a jail. And it is not that the government which has made that jail, or the government servants, authorities who are working in jail, you know are also culprits. No. And the government who has built that jail is also not culprit. It's the same government which has built the hospital, built the police station, which has built the jail. And the same government servants, similar government servants are working in jail. Same is, this is divine energy of Krishna, right? Which is just facilitating our desire to exploit Krishna's energies. But when we become intelligent, use our conscience, and surrender onto Krishna, Mam eva ye prapadyante. If you surrender onto me, Mayam etam tarantite, then you will be easily be able to cross over this material modes easily. Otherwise, Mama Maya Durattaya, Mama Maya Durattaya means this material energy of modes of nature is impossible to overcome. It's difficult to overcome if you want to independently try that. The easy way is to surrender onto me. Hmm? Mam evi prapadyante. And further, Krishna says, Mamyayo abhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samiti te brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. So again, the same thing has been reiterated in this verse, where Krishna is saying that one who engages in devotional service, bhakti yogena sevate. Bhakti yogena sevate means we have to do practical devotional service. And what is that devotional service? The devotional service is chanting Krishna's name, trying to read scriptures, try to hear about Krishna. This is what devotional service is, right? So if we involve ourselves in devotional service, then at once we transcend the modes of material nature. At once we will be able to get out of this jail. We will be able to get out this, shackles we are bounded with. And that's very important and very easy way, how we can cross this whole material world, right? So with that, I come towards an end of my session, and now I like to share very important practical tips, on the basis of today's session, right? uh, how to get along with people, right? So modes will work for sure, but effect can be minimized, right? Hate the sin, not the sinner. Forming perception on people is destructive. People do change, right? You should, you should develop some patience tolerance, right? Don't let them influence you, right? If you are strong in spirituality, you're doing your devotional service, then it's like getting an COVID immunization, right? You're getting a shot of same, uh, you know, uh, antigen, but it will attenuate it. It is, its potency has been minimized that it will not cause you infection. It's like, it will develop your antibodies then to fight against, which is what spirituality does, right? So when you get affected by someone, don't ponder out in too much. You have a higher goal in your life, and that is very important. And um, this is what is also highlighted here. Desha kalartha yuktani hrit tapo pashmani cha harati samrataschittam govindam bhi tani me. Now I am attracted to those instructions imparted to me by the personality of Godhead Govinda, because they are impregnated with instructions for relieving the burning heart in all circumstances of time and space, right? So once we are under the guidance of instructions from Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam, then it is like we are immunized, right? Then these so-called, viruses or bacterias in form of different personalities of negative people, they will not be able to influence us, right? We will stay where we are. Just by remembering Gita, you can get relief from all sufferings. So what we have to do is to repeatedly read, constant association with devotees, and we should try to chant daily. That is very important, right? And so, as we revise in every session, we will recite this shloka. Krate yadhyayato Vishnum Tretayam yajato makhe dwapare paricharyayam kalo tadhari kirtanat. Whatever result was obtained in Satyuga by meditating on Vishnu, in Treta Yuga by performing fire sacrifices, and in Dwapar Yuga by serving the Lord's lotus feet, can be obtained in Kali Yuga simply by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, right? So this is the formula for us in Kali Yuga. Chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, right, can help us to overcome, to to come out of these modes of nature, right? And here again, this has been repeated in Kali Santrana Upanishad, which is basically a discourse between Brahmaji and Narada, where Brahmaji says, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Iti Sodaskam Namna, Kali Kalmasha Nashna, Nata Parantaropaya, Sarva Vedeshu Drishyate. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. These 16 names, composed of 32 syllables, are the only means to counteract the evil effects of Kali Yuga. Please note what Brahmaji is saying, that these 16 names in form of this Hare Krishna mantra is the only means to counteract the evil effects of Kali Yuga. In all the Vedas, it is seen that to cross the ocean of nescience, there is no alternative to the chanting of the holy names, right? So I hope that all of you would have started chanting sincerely, seriously, these holy names in form of the Hare Krishna mantra. And I hope you must already be seeing some positive changes in your lives, right? Some differences, um, some positive changes, differences, what the Gita talks about, right? And ultimately, I tell you, if we all stick to this, as for example, if we are going from Bangalore to Delhi, right? And if we are sitting in a train, there may be some inconveniences, right? There may be people around us, whom we may not like too much, or they may be causing some trouble. But if you tolerate them, right? If you keep your calm, right? Just keep sitting in the train, you will achieve your destination. Similarly, if we continue our spiritual practices, sit in the train of spirituality, you may still face some challenges, but be tolerant, be patient, and we all will achieve the destination of going back to our home, which is Golok Vrindavan, which is Vaikuntha. Okay, so thank you. I request all of you, and I think all of you must already be doing your quizzes, right? These will be very helpful for you. And our next session will be on the Supreme Controller. Today we discussed about I am not the controller, right? And in next session we're talking. I'm going to discuss who is the Supreme Controller, right? So with this, I will like to end today's session and wanted to see if there's any question or any comments, any suggestions you have. Okay, so if there's no question, then we will like to end today's session. Hare Krishna, all of you. Thanks for attending. Thank you. Hare Krishna.